If people are starting to come back in, do you want to let us know that you're starting to come back in? Maybe put your cameras back on, or just pop a message in the chat so that we know. I'm not talking into a vacuum. I see someone has their hand up. It's Donna. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Donna, am I throwing to you? You've got your hand up. Nope, it's gone down. Okay.
I was just saying I'm back.
Oh, good one. You were giving me a wave to let me know. Thank you.
Luckily, I didn't bore too many people to death. Let's see, they've got some good retention.
Well, you were right up kind of on the midday bit, Jeff, so hopefully people will grab a snack or something since we've all been had our little time away. I do need to mention that, and I should have mentioned it at the start, apologies. I know it's mentioned in the agenda. We are recording today's meeting, so just so everyone knows. So if you have concerns about that, or you don't want your image on, just turn your camera off or reach out to Donna or Jeff after this, and they can check in with you around what's circulated. But this way, if people can't attend today, they can have their own record of the meeting. Now, I think we're all back. So, and I'm mindful of people's time. So the next section has, again, heaps of dot points in it. Jeff, would you like me to throw to you? Although I see the first one is biodiversity response planning, which I think you would like me to chat about.
Yeah, I can put up the slide and then you maybe start off with that,
yeah.
So we get a different voice in the mix.
Go for it. Go for it. And again, if there's any questions on the next few topics we're about to run through, feel free to put them in the chat. Isn't Jeff great at making a PowerPoint, by the way? These are so much more exciting than anything I would be able to put together. Is there a specific BRP one?
No, I just talk to it.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent.
I'll put a bit of a timeline up.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm going to talk a little bit about biodiversity response planning because I've been managing the engagement process for that. So I'm not a biodiversity expert, but I am an engagement expert, and we've been helping the biodiversity team in our region with that process. So biodiversity response planning from DELP is essentially kind of, there's boundaries set at a statewide level, and then the regions decide how they're going to deliver those. I'm not sure if anyone was involved in biodiversity response planning phase 1. I know it wasn't the most popular program ever run out of DELP, so it is a little bit different. Phase 2 has been quite different. The main focus has been that this year the outcomes haven't been linked to funding. So in the past, biodiversity response planning, people were asked to nominate priority projects and priority landscapes, and then kind of all agree on it, and that's where the funding would go. But that proved really difficult because obviously it didn't create a lot of harmony between different groups and different projects, which is, you know, not what we want. We'd love everyone to be working together. So this year, the focus has been on developing priorities that can be used to develop a management plan for the next 5 to 10 years that don't have funding attached to it. That process has been run in kind of a number of platforms. The first one has been that it has been run in partnership with traditional owners. So, and there's been a real link between cultural values and biodiversity values. So DELP has employed Dja Dja Wurrung to engage traditional owners on this issue. So for them to design that process and deliver that process themselves and give that information, the information they're comfortable with, back to DELP for our use. Running concurrent to that, DELP has been meeting with stakeholders and having forums like this, essentially, where we talk about projects and we ask people to give us, you know, the things that they think are important and are of biodiversity value in their region. Additional to that, there is an online survey that anyone can access, and we'll send out the links to this with the other info, where you can drop a pin on a map and say, this is the area I think is really important and this is where it is. Or there's also a traditional survey where you can answer questions and nominate the areas that you think are really important. So at the moment, there's been a lot of information collected. If you're really passionate and you've still got information, there's still opportunity to submit it. But at the moment, the work has been on analysing all of the information that's currently been submitted from partners and the community and traditional owners, kind of plotting that on a map of our region, and then looking at how we develop that into priorities and a management plan. And that's probably going to take until the end of the year. The next steps will be that management plan then is looked to be funded. But, you know, in the context of those priorities have come from the community, but there'll also be scientific information that we receive, there'll be research information we receive, and that will all have to be assessed and analysed together to form a big picture for biodiversity management. The other thing to note in our region, in Loddon Mallee, this process has been running alongside the North Central Catchment Management Authority's regional catchment strategy. So and we're largely asking the same questions. The RCS asks partners and members of the community what assets are of value to them in the landscape. And essentially, that's the same question. We're just using two different words, which is, of course, the government way. So the CMA wants to know assets and we're asking for values. But really, we're saying to people, what matters to you in regards of biodiversity response? And then, yeah, collecting all of that information and then trying to put it forward into a management plan. So that will likely be, the values will be put together by the end of this year, and then management plan mid next year. That's about the size of it, Jeff, if you would like it back.
Thanks for that, Pauline. And I guess the core document around all this is Biodiversity 2037, which is on the DELT website. And another piece of work that might be of interest for those in the biodiversity area is post bushfire. There's been a lot of values mapping and spatial mapping being done around how do we strategically recover our biodiversity post fire, and that work. So there was a plan that was released earlier this year or mid this year, but later this year there'll be another plan that kind of encompasses all of Victoria as we start to look more broadly at how do we protect the genetics of certain species or protect the types of habitats that are still intact, and a lot of that will cover this region and other parts of the state. So yeah, keep your eyes out for those ones. So yeah, as Pauline mentioned, so the regional catchment strategy is essentially the Catchment Management Authority's long-term vision for natural resource management, and so that's being undertaken now and is due to be completed by mid-2021. Some other strategic bits of work happening in the region that you might want to be involved in is, as I mentioned in my previous update, the climate change, the Victorian climate change strategy, which is legislatively due by October 31st of this year, which might happen or might not happen depending on how COVID continues to play out. But Friends of the Earth are doing, I guess, the people's strategy version of that, and they're going out and doing some engagement. So they're looking and probably already have been doing some work in the region. So if you want to reach out to them to see what they've been doing, can do. And that work's going to be done by the end of this year. And then obviously post-election, local government elections this year, there's a requirement for them to develop a municipal health and wellbeing plan and their local government council plans or community plans, same name, different name, same thing. So they'll I guess start once the new council's been elected. So that process will begin, I guess, post October. So yeah, try and get involved in those if you can. And Donna, were you going to talk about the ADAPT stuff, or do you want me to just quickly just run through that? All right, I'll quickly do it. So the work that I guess everyone who's in the room has been involved in is part of the ADAPT program, and the ADAPT program, I guess, is the implementation of a broader piece of strategic work, which is around regional adaptation planning or developing a regional adaptation plan, which is really just to kind of pull out the unique nuances of what climate change and the impacts look like in our region, the issues and the opportunities that might not be covered by, I guess, a statewide approach. So we can feed that into the development of the sector plans, just so the grassroots issues and challenges and opportunities can actually be supported. And if there are big, larger top-down programs, they meet the needs and more bespoke to our regional aspirations. So that's where, I guess, the leadership program comes in, and we'll talk in more detail about all the different aspects of that later on after the next break. But the key dates for this is that bit of work, or that planning work, needs to be completed by mid next year. So that's the timeline that we're working towards that. And there might be some questions around that since you're all involved. So I'll stop sharing the screen now and we'll take some questions.
We haven't got any questions as of yet, Jeff. There's none in the chat there, but feel free to pop your hand up or unmute yourself, or you can type your question into the chat.
Tim.
I was just interested in the municipal health and wellbeing plans. Is there a website for them, or could you send background information about that process?
Yeah. So all that is on the Department of Health and Human Services website. So there's a strategic document between now and I think it says till 2023 that outlines what needs to be in that plan and the process of developing those plans. So that can be found on their website.
Do they have a strong emphasis on climate change issues?
Yes. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Well, they will this time, yes.
Okay.
And local government needs to consider it this time. So, and I guess the supporting document, if you're interested, is the pilot health and wellbeing sector plan, which was released at the end of last year, which really kind of drills into the different aspects and impacts of climate change and I guess the full dynamics of health from the environment to services. So you can have a look at those.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have a look at that. That'd be good. Thank you.
We haven't had any other questions come through, but I see Donna had accidentally double muted herself, Jeff, when you were trying to throw to her. So did you have anything you wanted to add, Donna?
Yeah, just apologies for the IT fail. It has to happen at least once a day, doesn't it? No, I was just going to say that, obviously the impact of last year's bushfires and then COVID has pushed out our timelines a little bit regarding the ADAPT program and the regional adaptation plan, but it is all still going ahead. We're just with an extended timeline, and we are still hoping to have the summit in some form in March next year, and I'll actually be doing a bit of a expression of interest to this group and a couple of the other groups that we've been working with to see if anyone's interested in co-designing what that summit would look like. So yeah, we want it to be something that reflects the region, and the best way to do that is to actually get people in the region involved in what the summit actually will, how the summit will work, and how the collection of storytelling and priorities can actually create a strategy, because it's quite a new approach for us. So yeah, we'll definitely be looking for input from this group if anyone's interested, just to flag that that's coming.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we do have a hand up, SN Downing. I'm so sorry I can't see your name. I can only see the username, but feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Kyle, I had a question too.
Yeah, look, I was just wondered there's a bit of interest locally in sort of traditional Indigenous fire management, and if there's any kind of training. I think that Fire Sticks Alliance maybe are offering stuff in New South Wales. So like I'm a little bit aware that DELP has partnered with Dja Dja Wurrung in terms of doing a bit of that in parks, but I just wondered if there's anything potentially happening at community level, or opportunities for training, especially.
yeah, might have to take that one on board. But Pauline, you might have something to add on to that potentially.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm not aware of anything that they are offering for community members to take up, although I am aware that Jandak, who is the business arm of Jar Jar Wurrung, are always looking for opportunities, and it's actually something that we could definitely raise with them as an opportunity, because I think there would be a pretty big interest and a huge take up of it. So that's something we can take on board to take back to them.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think it's sort of it's timely, and I think there's a lot of interest based on, you know, what happened last summer. So yeah, could be a good time to put that question out there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Kyla, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, your Jeff, your presentation's great, and I really want to watch it again because it was so fast and there was so much in there. And struggling to get my head around all this. And I think, and it relates to the summit as well. In some ways, it feels like what we need to do is create the circle, as in, I see all this policy stuff, but then where does it go down and is expressed in projects on the ground, and then how do they feed back up into policy? And I'm really trying to think of how do we communicate some of this sort of stuff to the people, and also get that circle of understanding the links in the chain of how policy relates to projects on the ground and up and over.
Yeah, there's a issue and a question around how that actually happens, because I don't think we've quite worked out how to actually make policy translate very well into localized issues. So yeah, if anyone's got any thoughts and ideas of how to do that well, and this is part of what we're trying to do and adapt, is that learning by doing, to see by actually undertaking activity or trying to do something, really to see where those issues and gaps are and barriers are, or where the smooth sailing is. So you can really kind of just say, these are the things that need to be done. Keep these things the same, or these things just need some tweaking. But I think there's a grand experiment going on at the moment around how that happens. And the more people that can participate in the ADAPT program while we're developing up the plan, the more clarity I think we'll get around what that looks like. So yeah, it'll be really great.
All these, the planning and the strategies that you've been mentioning, they're still in that strategy sphere. They haven't actually filtered down into being expressed by projects as yet. Are these all new things that you were talking about?
Yeah, the majority of them are still new, and they haven't had funding attached to them, but just because the budgets haven't been announced for them. And there's been a lot of work just, I guess, making sure that this doesn't have flow-on economic effects and things like that, which, you know, people kind of perceive as slow, but it's a bit of a due diligence type of thing. But yeah, we're hoping the end of this year, next year, we'll actually see some more tangible programs. But if the more we can kind of feedback what we need on the ground, we can inform what those programs and things need to be and do. So it's quite timely now to actually kind of express what we actually want in the regions.
Great.
I think.
Yeah, obviously, like just to mention, so because here in Castlemaine, Mount Alexander Shire, we've started up a community discussion forum to really try and move on from the climate change forum in 2019, where there were lots of great and amazing ideas and projects sort of put forward, and moving that onto an online space, trying to get more people involved and, you know, and sort of see where we go from there. So that's it. Hopefully it's still in the soft launch at the moment. It's not, you know, being publicized to the public as yet, but yeah, hopefully that can roll on and feed into some of this stuff.
I thought I saw Leah's hand go up, or a virtual hand.
That's okay. I just put it back down again. I'm just searching for a bit more information about a project that we profiled last year on the partnership between Jar Jar Wurrung and DELP around Indigenous burning practices. So Sam, I'll find that in the break and send it through to you. But there has been quite a lot of work done there.
Thanks, Leah. I think that was everyone. Unless anyone's got any last questions, they want to jump in, feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise,
I've got a really quick question. So it's about Jeff. It's about your first presentation when you were talking about removing barriers within council. Would that include, say, for example, tiny homes? Because I think I've heard that there's council legislation that quite prohibits the use of tiny homes, which are great for lots of reasons. From dealing with refugees, thinking of new living ways to live in our spaces, to reducing our emissions. Would that include something like that?
Yeah, at a high level, like not specifically around tiny houses, but just trying to identify those barriers, yes. But I guess there needs to be a bit of a movement to kind of just say, yeah, tiny houses is the way to go for us, and and we need some changes, and these are what the issues are. Yeah, that's something that we can maybe have a chat to planning group in DELP just to see what is maybe happening around tiny houses or alternative home arrangements, and just see if there's anything in there. But I would imagine there's still a lot of work being focused on around environmental sustainable design at a more higher level. Simon Francis, who works in the City of Greater Bendigo, is a bit of a guru around a lot of this stuff. So he'd be quite an interesting local person to connect with if you wanted to about the planning stuff. And yeah, but we can take that one back and search.
Can I just jump in there? It's a good question, but I live in a tiny home and it's like living in a tent. So the tiny home thing is only working if it's built well. And I was very disappointed with the government that they're offering this $25,000 grant at the moment for as part of the COVID response for builders or for contracts with builders to build new homes or significantly renovate existing homes. And it was a very missed opportunity to make sure that that money went into sustainable design, because it could have been targeted for sustainable building design, not just building, in general.
Yeah.
So, tiny homes are great, but only if they're built well.
Yeah, and like a lot of the local governments in our region have had that battle, both I guess federally and at a state, around trying to reduce greenfield developments, because a lot of our, say, Bendigo, Castlemaine, we're all surrounded by forest, and expanding that urban sprawl means cutting down the bush. So there's been a lot of development, but yeah, unfortunately the market drive is people just wanting large homes that are cheaper than trying to rebuild and redevelop in a city, in a town type developments. But yeah, I guess the question is like, how do you incentivize and change that? And that's beyond my knowledge and power at the moment. But I know there's a lot of work being looked into how do we actually do that. But yeah, it also means a maturity in the markets and those private developers and supporting government and communities' visions around that. And there's a fair bit of work to go still there.
Yes.
I don't think we've missed any questions, Jeff. So back to you.
Yeah, I think the next section was going to talk a little bit more in depth about ADAPT. So I think Donna was going to take this one. So I'll just put up the presentation again. Unless Donna, just for your ease to flick through, did you want to just put it up?
Oh, it's all right. You can share your screen if you want. You'll know when to change slides.
Yeah. All right. I'll be diligent.
Cool. All right. We're just going to, I guess, spend a quick 10 minutes going through, I guess, some of the other pilots that we're running as part of the ADAPT program, just to give you a bit of an update on where everyone else is at. And we're going to start with the Youth Climate Network. So, oh dear, that looks like it's moved around a little bit in, I'm just letting Christy back in. She's having some IT problems. So as most of you know, we held a Youth Climate Summit in January of this year. It seems like so long ago, but we had 24 very enthusiastic young people from around the region join us to work through a co-design process that really tackled how government could engage young people in issues around climate change and adaptation. We worked with an organisation called YLab, who are an organisation of young people, and they delivered a report recently with some recommendations. Now, if you'd like to read the full report, it is available on our website on the Youth Climate Network page, so feel free to have a look at it. But there were 5 key recommendations that came out of that. The first being create a community-led movement, create a mentoring or support network for young people, support some youth-focused events on adapting to climate change, create a climate education program, and create more leadership opportunities for young people. So the young people involved in this group, man, have they had some challenges over the last 5 months. Online learning, young people doing their VCE and all the stresses that are coming with that. But we've still retained kind of a core group that have been workshopping how they might deliver on some of those recommendations through projects. And they've finally settled on some project ideas. So yeah, we're just about to kind of launch those, which is pretty exciting. So the first being a mini grant or award for creative responses to climate change for young people. They're looking at organising a fun run in ISO. So initially it was supposed to be a community event, but they're looking at interesting ways that participants could do that on their own in an appropriate way, but still raise awareness around climate change issues for young people. They're also looking to maybe implement in partnership with some other organisations a young farmers in agriculture mentoring network. They're really interested in learning from traditional owners and thinking about how to get young people on country to learn about the impacts of climate change from a traditional owner perspective. And the other thing that they're looking to do is to coordinate some grow your own food workshops for young people. So back to that focus that we're seeing really across the region in communities on local food security. And then they're also interested in getting involved in what the summit looks like and the strategy as well. So giving them those leadership opportunities to kind of get involved in those bigger pieces of work. The next thing that is pretty exciting that's going on at the moment is our Climate Ready Communities initiative. So the activity book is finally completed. So this is an activity book that's aimed at primary school age kids and really takes them on a bit of a journey through the region, through the eyes of Griffin, the growling grass frog, and his mates that he meets along the way, to understand what are some of the impacts of climate change and how can kids kind of respond to that. It's really lots of fun, brightly coloured. We're hoping to launch it in October, pending schools being back to face-to-face teaching, and we're going to be providing free copies to schools in the region that register their interest in it. So that's really exciting. If anyone wants to have a look at the PDF of the book, please sing out because, yeah, it's lots of fun. There's also a game that goes in the back of the book, so a climate change snakes and ladders game, which is lots of fun too. Our Climate Ready Communities toolkits, we're just in the process of incorporating all the feedback that we got from the working group, and thank you to the people that are here today that provided feedback on the kits. It's been really, really useful, and I think that we'll end up with a great kit when we finally can go back to face-to-face engagement with our communities. We're just kind of, in the process of getting all that together and finalising the photo cards, and probably creating a bit of an online how to use the cards for video as well, so that we can get people a little bit ready to go once we can go back to face-to-face engagement. Do we want to move on to the next slide, Jeff? So the Partnering for Resilience stream kind of covers quite a few things. So part of that is our 3CA grants program, and all of our projects are going really well. Barappa and Amora delivered their event just in the nick of time before we all went down into lockdown, and that was around raising community awareness around the impacts of climate change around the Kerang Lakes, and they also created a climate ready forest garden there. So they've revegetated a space that's used by the public but had been overrun by weeds. There's 2 tree planting projects and some heat mapping. Those have gone ahead and trees are in and have been planted and are getting some nice rain on them, which is great. And Food Next Door up in Mildura are also going great guns with their community water bank, and they've been getting some great airtime on the ABC, and Costa had them on his Sunday morning roving show the other day. So they're getting really good publicity about their work, and it's actually leading to some great donations of water from irrigators up there. So it's a really interesting model of how water can be shared in a community, and it'll be a really good learning moving forward. The Climate Ready Maldon project has had its up and downs because, like Jeff said before, we can't get into homes to do energy assessments at the moment. So they're putting their thinking caps on and thinking about how they can still deliver on thinking about how we can create homes that are thermally safe for the most vulnerable people in communities, whilst not being able to actually get into people's homes. So a bit of a challenge there. But I'd have to say I've been really proud of all of the grant recipients. They've really been able to think on their feet and respond to some of the challenges that the COVID restrictions have had on their engagement plans. Another thing that we've recently launched, and you might have read about this in the newsletter, is our Caring for Country in a Changing Climate microfunding program. And this is really a funding program for traditional owners and other Aboriginal groups in the region. And I guess what it's really about is thinking about, well, how can traditional owners understand how climate change might impact their communities, and how they might respond to that, and also for us to appropriately understand how Indigenous knowledge can help other Victorians to adapt to climate change. So that we already have some expressions of interest for that, so that's fairly new, but we're looking forward to seeing the work that comes out of that. There's also been a bit of work going on with some of the health providers, and thinking about how extreme heat in the region is impacting the health and well-being of people living in poor housing stock in the region, and it's been a theme coming through quite a few pieces of work at the moment, so that's on our radar too. Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to add about the CMA work or anything with the Partnering for Resilience?
Just that through the regional strategy that they're undertaking at the moment, that we're looking for some pilot projects to emerge out of that we can fund. So yeah, if you've got project ideas and themes, you can either come to us or work into those processes, but we'll hopefully try and provide an opportunity to seed fund or pilot a few things. Just with the extreme heat one as well, so that one's particularly targeting public housing in, I guess, our most extreme climate zone, which is up around the Mallee, and it's going to be trying to target around 1,600 homes, just addressing some of the shell issues and energy efficiency stuff, because they've got some real challenges up there. So the regional roadmap is something as well that we've been doing a lot of work and working with the Central Victorian Greenhouse Alliance. And in a way, this is similar to what we're doing with the regional adaptation strategy around understanding the region's approach or opportunities or challenges to moving towards a fully renewable energy green region. And so that's a really interesting document if you want to have a read. And there's about 7 kind of priority themes and recommendations for our region to look at around renewables and the structures that support that. So if you go to either the CVJ, the Central Victorian Greenhouse Alliance website, or the DELP website, and do we have it on the ADAPT website, Donna? Yep. Any one of those, you should be able to find it there, but it's a really interesting read, and it kind of just sort of lays out the foundations of, I guess, our regional story about renewables. So that's a really interesting one. And just out of that work that was done there, that led to this opportunity that Jay mentioned as one of the great things that happened was doing that kind of groundwork had allowed us to take a really short time frame for an opportunity to fund a number of EV charging stations across the regions in 6 local government areas. So if you ever get an electric vehicle, hopefully by the end of this project, you should be able to travel anywhere in the region without no issues. So that's really exciting. And I know Jay's been heavily involved, and I think you're a part of the tender process maybe. But I suppose after that point of the tender, if you're wanting some more details about locations and things like that, either Jay or myself, or even Rob Law, if you know Rob, can help you out with that. But that's a really exciting opportunity. And I guess a key message from that is the groundwork was done and set in stone in terms of a direction and what we wanted. And this opportunity that came up, which had a very short time frame for funding, allowed us to jump on that really quickly, and hopefully we can do similar types of things with some of the adaptation work as well. So
and finally, what you've all been waiting for is what's happening with the leadership program. So I'm going to hand over to Leah, who's going to step you through some of the work that we've been doing in revisioning this program. And just before I hand to Leah, just like, it's so great to see everyone here today. It's very exciting. So I hope that you're all excited about the phase 2 or stage 2 for the leadership program.
Thanks so much, Donna. And it's a great pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon too. I'm just trying to share my screen and I'm wondering if I'm having any success.
Yeah, it looks like it's it.
Ah, now, why can I not see it though? So, is it now looking full screen?
Yes.
Do you? Oh, good. Thanks. That was a bit of a mystery to me. Well,
whatever you did, you did it right.
What a fantastic update from Jeff, Donna and team today around all of the work that the Victorian government's undertaking to progress adaptation. And I think, you'd be forgiven for feeling like that was kind of drinking from a fire hose. There's so much there that's amazing and to process and to start to apply to local community projects that you're interested in. So in this next 10 minutes or so, I'd like to explain how we collected and then listened to your feedback about the first leg of the course, how we've redesigned ADAPT for online delivery for the second half of the course, and then take any questions that you've got. So thanks to everyone for participating in the survey process and the phone interviews with Donna. I think that really shone a light on a number of themes for us, and there was a lot of information in there to digest around what you were really enjoying about the program, which processes that we were teaching were valuable, and where there were gaps in our design and delivery. So we really appreciated your honest and direct feedback around that, and that's really helped us redesign the second half of the program. So 4 of the key themes that we heard from you in that survey were around connectedness, and that you were missing each other and missing working in your local communities, which I can very much relate to, and I think everyone in the delivery team's feeling that same loss of connectedness. So we heard that you wanted to have more informal opportunities to be connecting with each other, and to make sure that in any time that we bring you together as a group like this today, that you've got enough space within the live webinar to hear from each other and to have a bit of a chat and reconnect. So that was the first theme. The second one was around more support and direction to learn and lead during the pandemic than you would have had we been working together in the face-to-face residentials. So I think what participants were meaning by that was greater clarity in the readings that are provided, more information in those readings and tasks that are assigned, and making sure that all of the content is relevant to adaptation for climate change and grassroots community leadership processes that support that. And the next theme is connected to that too, that community engagement has fundamentally changed. So even when we do get back to having town hall meetings and kitchen table conversations, what are the considerations that you need around a COVID restricted world to do that really effectively? So that's a consideration that we've built into teaching community engagement practices in the second half. And that people wanted a really structured, well-resourced online environment to learn in. So I'd just like to walk you through a really high-level overview of what Stage 2 is going to look like, and then we'll come to a bit of question and conversation. So Stage 2 is going to be conducted over 5 months. So we're going to begin in October and finish in February 2021. And there won't be any active sessions being delivered in January, so we can all have a bit of a break in January. So each month we'll be running 2 webinars. The first will be of about 60 to 90 minutes, and the second one will generally be for 2 hours, and they'll be held on the first Tuesday and Thursday of the month. So in October, we'll have the first webinar will be focused around showcasing great practice around adaptation to climate change. And in October, we'll be hearing from some traditional owners and friends of the earth. And that webinar will be facilitated and prepared by Jeff and Donna and their team. And then we'll have a leadership skills and processes webinar of 2 hours. And we're going to start walking through participants through design thinking as a process that could be very useful in working with communities to articulate an adaptive challenge and start to identify a solution set to that climate adaptation challenge in your community. So we're going to be teaching some really pragmatic tools and processes about how you can conduct that consultation, understanding that you are very limited in how you can conduct the consultation in a face-to-face capacity. We've welcomed 2 members to our delivery team, and sadly we'll be farewelling Adam Place. Adam Place has got a lot of work on at the moment as a consultant, so he's fully committed for the end of the year. And it's sad to see Adam go, but he asked me to please wish you all the very best with the completion of the program. And so Lead Lord and Murray have engaged Minds at Work to join our delivery team. So our 2 new facilitators joining the ADAPT program are Jason Clark and Lisa Smith. And if Jason Clark's name rings a bell, he was one of the founding directors of the Centre for Sustainable Leadership. He's got a really strong background in advocacy on positive action on climate change and adaptation, as well as innovation and design thinking coaching. And Lisa Smith comes from Gigari and has been really at the heart of a lot of work in Gigari around revitalising and regenerating the town, but also helping people think through adaptive practice to the composition of their community and climate change. So they'll both be really positive additions to the delivery team. And I'll still be a part of the delivery team. I'll be in every session and really keen to work with you in between sessions about how you connect the ideas with supporting your local communities. Then in addition to those 2 webinars each month, we're going to offer 3 flexible opportunities to get together. And these are optional, but we introduce them to create value, and we really heard through the survey process that there was a hunger to be connecting with people and having some of the conversations that you've started to get into today. We'll be offering an opportunity to work with a mentor. So if that's something that interests you, we're going to ask you to put your hand up in the next week or so we can match you with a mentor who's completed the Loddon Murray Community Leadership Program in the last 20 years. We've got 20 years of graduates to draw on there, who's working in the area of adaptive practice to climate change. We're going to have a coffee catch-up once a month and in smaller groups. And each time you get together in a small group, we'll change the composition of that group. And that's to give you an opportunity to meet and get to know each other across the full breadth of 23 participants, rather than being limited to building relationships within one small home team. And then at the end of the month, we'll have almost like a book club session. It's an opportunity to get together in a relaxed sort of context for about 90 minutes, build awareness of the great work that you're all leading in ways that you've shared today, and discuss important advocacy within a regional, statewide and national context to advance adaptive capacity. So that one's really about providing you with the space to have those conversations. In November, we'll be hearing from 3 presenters who've been really involved in climate adaptation related projects like the 3CA grants administered by DELP, following a panel discussion with them. So every month, DELP are going to be convening one of these webinars, which is entirely focused on sharing great practice in building adaptive capacity, which is a wonderful way of getting more climate change related content into the program. And then on the Thursday, we'll be working through the second stage in that design thinking process. And that one will be around stakeholder relationships and partnerships. Again, in November, you'll have an opportunity to work with a mentor, to come to a coffee catch-up and be a part of the end of the month networking and connection piece. In December, we'll have another climate adaptation showcase, and that will be featuring more stories from organisations that DELP have partnered with, like Coolett Birchip and Malden Neighbourhood House. So we've heard a little bit about some of the great work coming out of those groups today. And it'll be great to start to meet some of the people leading those projects and be able to build relationships with them. And we'll work on the third stage of developing an adaptive climate-related challenge that you're going to present a solution set around by the end of the program. In December, we'll also provide the opportunities to work with your mentor, catch up for a coffee, and come to the end of the month chat. And in February, we'll have a session convened by DELP around understanding how decisions are made about investment into or policy support for adaptive projects. So that'll be a really interesting one to get inside the thinking process of regional directors and others who are involved in making those big decisions about which proposals they're likely to support and which ones they can see challenges with. And our final session will be around understanding how to present your proposed project, so the proposed solution set to your adaptive challenge, to attract resource. And we'll be having a look at financial resource through funding applications and informal approaches to government departments, as well as how to achieve in-kind resource and support from larger organisations across the region. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now. I think I have stopped sharing the screen.
You've done that, Leah.
Great, thank you, Donna. Again, magic. And invite you to ask any questions or make a comment about the second leg of ADAPT.
I think it looks great. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
I agree. And this is a pretty specific to my group. I'm just wondering how the group teams, you know, are going to continue. I think I'm really happy with my team, but there's only 2 of us left meeting regularly. So I'm just wondering if they, you know, they'd be shuffled up or potentially consolidated, or, you know, how are we going to move forward with them?
Yeah, so we won't be using home teams in exactly the same way in the second stage of ADAPT. So we've got the 2 webinars each month, and during the webinar you'll be broken off into small groups a number of times, but we'll change the composition of the groups during each webinar so that you get to know each other across the participant cohort as well as you can for the next 5 months. So if your existing home team would like to keep meeting and wants to keep that relationship, perhaps that's something that you can do through the coffee catch-ups or informally outside of the program days. But we heard a lot of feedback around each of you really wanting to get to know each other across the whole group. So I think that if we were working together face-to-face, the home team structure is a really important one around building relationships and being able to share quite intimately the challenges that you face in community. But in an online environment, it's not working as well in terms of giving you enough exposure to each other across the whole cohort.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that's a good step.
Leah, can I just add, I think we've already seen some synergies happening across the group today. So Tim and Rachel have said that they want to catch up and chat a little bit more about Rachel's regenerative agriculture project, regenerative community, project, and that's something that Tim shares an interest with. So as people are kind of developing their ideas and their projects, there's kind of new synergies emerging across the teams, and I think it's a great opportunity to get support from people who are interested in certain challenges or already have kickstarted a project idea and might want a sounding board off somebody that's been there before or is potentially thinking about something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Sam.
That sounds good. And I'm wondering actually how about the program leaders about your availability as sounding boards, I suppose in terms of what we're molding for this program.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Sam. So I think we're all very available and very interested to understand how we can support you through that development process. And we're going to make ourselves available in formal and informal ways. So informally via email at any time if you've got a question that you'd like to send through to any of us. And then formally, we might say we're going to be available for an hour before or after one of those webinar sessions, or before or after that end of month session. So we'll also be around for a chat.
Yeah, I'll second that. I'm always available on the phone. If anyone wants to give me a call at any time, you don't need to text me and tell me you're going to call me first. I'm not of that generation. So.
I think we're also really curious about the work that you're leading. And Louise, when you mentioned how you've been able to keep your project going around the wildflowers in the centre of town through people meeting in pairs, that sounds fantastic. So if any of you are happy to share for 5 or 10 minutes the great work that you've been doing within one of those webinar sessions, that's also something we'd love to give voice to. And good on you. What an effort during lockdown with a baby in a tiny house.
Thanks. Yeah, I was surprised too, actually. I thought, oh no, here we go. It's all just going to stop in its tracks. But everybody rallied. We just have so much fun. I don't know if I've told you all, but you know, we got to a point where we were all bringing our home produce and sharing home produce, and you know, bringing our bags that were destined for the op shop and sharing things that were going to the op shop. And it's really developing nicely into something that could not just be a revegetation project, and nothing against revegetation projects, but really a project that brings the community together. So that's what we're aiming for, isn't it?
It sounds absolutely divine.
Mm.
What an advertisement for living for living in Rushworth. That sounds
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come and live in Rushworth, everybody. Let's start our own little revolution here.
Well, it sounds like they're kind of seeding everywhere. So let's also hear more of your stories as we're getting together in each of those sessions. So 2 webinar sessions a month, 3 opportunities to flexibly catch up, and more written updates from the team in between. So if you do have any other questions about that, or you'd like to share some feedback, please feel really welcome to shoot us an email. And we'll have the full revised program coming out to you in the next 3 weeks. So the first session will be in the last week in September. So we're aiming to get that revised program to you as soon as we can. Great, that's all from me.
Do we have a date? We have a date for that September session, don't we, Leah?
Yes, that's the 22nd of September.
And that session will really be a step through in more detail of the new program, and potentially welcoming some new people to the program, depending on how much take up we have from the current cohort. And we do hope that you all join us on this new journey, given that we've been through some ups and downs, and trying to apply ourselves to something we didn't sign up for in the first place. And I think that goes for Leah and Jeff as well. We've really given adaptation a good shake in trying to think about how we respond to circumstances that we didn't foresee coming. I just also wanted to mention part of the new program will include a learning and development budget for each of the participants. So if there's, a conference or a seminar or some other training opportunities that you would really like to add value to the work that you're doing, we're going to provide I think it's approximately $250 per participant as a learning and development budget as well. So have a look around, see if there's anything you fancy doing. I know that there's an amazing conference coming up at the end of September from the We Adapt network, really based on community adaptation. So, and it was originally going to be in Bangkok. It's a global adaptation network, but they've moved it online. So it's a great opportunity to kind of really hear from people working in communities across the globe on adaptation as well. So that's just one that springs to mind. But yeah, keep that in mind. And if there's anything that you think you'd really benefit from, let us know and we can make that happen.
Thanks, Donna. And I see Kyla's asked a question there about, am I happy to share about my decision to shift direction and hand the reins over to Keith at Lead Loddon Murray, which I'm so delighted with that outcome. Yes, and look, I just made a decision at the end of last year that I really love working with people. I love facilitation and coaching, and I want to spend the rest of my career as an educator rather than doing the administration and business management of an organisation. So it was a very liberating decision for me, and I'm really enjoying that move away from administering and doing all of the investment seeking work around building a not-for-profit to working in it. Yeah, so thanks for asking, Kyla.
Wait, can I say something to the lead group? I just really appreciated the gesture that you refunded the money that we paid to do the course. That was very kind of you, and quite appreciated at this time as well. So thanks to Delp and Lead for organising that.
Thanks, Louise. And had there been any hiccups with that process at all? If anyone's not yet received their refund, please feel really welcome to get in touch with our team. But I think that process is going pretty smoothly so far. So thanks, Louise.
Mm.
Fantastic. Well, it's been such a delight to see everyone today, to hear how you're travelling and how much work is actually progressing. So thank you, Jeff, for that fantastic presentation. It was really rich, really rich in content, a lot for us to digest and consider there. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Pauline. Really good to hear how your projects are travelling, and we know that you're going to share the slide decks and people will be able to come to you if they've got more questions when they're rereading through that material.
Sounds good.
Brilliant. And look forward to seeing you all on the 22nd.
Jeff, is there anything you wanted to say before we finish up?
Just an open invitation. Given that was a bit of a whirlwind of information today, that always happy to have a chat in detail about anything. It's not often we get to talk about the bureaucratic processes of government in detail, and not many people enjoy it. But sometimes it's quite enlightening to kind of just see why things don't happen or why these things do. So happy to kind of talk in detail about any of those, but just generally just really happy to see everyone's faces today and all the work, because at the end of the day we're that conduit between policy and making things work on the ground. And I think if we're going to adapt in this region, it's really individuals like everyone on the line today that's going to make it happen. And I think it's our job and duty as public servants to do our best to make that happen, because you're the ones that are feeling the impacts every day. And the only way we can kind of help you is to learn from you and understand those issues. So yeah, thank you all for being here today, and hopefully we'll see you in our program continuing on.
Just before you go, Jeff, there's a question there from Kyla about where will the video recording live from this session?
At the moment, I think we'll just email it to everybody as a recording, and then we're still working through some of the hosting decisions for the new program. So, but for the time being, we'll send you an email with the video.
Yeah, and you all know that we have our newsletter, so tell us your story so we can tell everybody else about them.
Yeah, Lou, I'll be in touch for some quotes for you from that story. Thanks for sending the photos and stuff through. That made my day last week.
No worries. Thanks, Donna.
All right. Well, I think we're about 5-6 minutes over, so we might wrap it up.
Not bad considering how much information we actually had to get through. So, thanks.
If anybody else in the group wants to hear the story of our project or its development, I'm happy to send through an email and some photos. Just FYI, just in case you're interested. It's I don't know, it might help.
Do you want me to just forward that email that you sent me with the photos and the story to the group? Lou, I can do that.
You can, Donna. I've also got some before and after photos of the site, so I can do a photographic essay if you like.
Amanda?
I'm just going to hijack this conversation because it's kind of in the right context. Just with Lou, just with regard to your project and Eloise was going to get you to shoot me through an email, and I just was hoping you could perhaps, get that to me so I can give you some money from another project to fund some stuff for that wildflower garden too.
Yeah, sorry, Amanda, I should have mentioned you earlier. So Amanda's also helping with our project through the community house system. And I didn't realise you were waiting for an email from me,
No,
Amanda. So any opportunity to get some tools on the ground and, some encouragement from different angles and different groups is great for our group to know that we've got a lot of support in the community, in the greater community. So,
No, awesome.
I'll be in touch, Amanda. Thanks.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. And sorry to hijack that. I just good opportunity.
All right. Bye, everyone. You'll hear from me in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, everyone. See you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.